I like walking around, it's good for me. Could you tell me where we could go eat? Take me to the good times. I just gotta get out most days, you see. I like walking around, it's good for me. Could you tell me where we could go eat? Take me to the good times. Summer's in Brooklyn, women in age, shaking hands on the rooftop on the MLK.
Good morning, everyone. And I am Andres Montoya. I am a leadership coach and executive, passionate about jazz and a sax player. And it is my pleasure to be here as your host in Coffee with Leaders. I have defined it as a very informal and very personal space in which we share our experiences and our leadership journey. And today, my guest, Tim JohnPress, very welcome. Tim is a leadership and executive coach, passionate about martial arts, and also he's the managing director at JohnPress Leadership Advisory. So, good morning, Tim. Welcome to Coffee with Leaders. How are you today?
Good morning, Andres. I'm doing well, and thank you for everybody who's joined us today. It's good to be with you all.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for welcoming our audience because I didn't do that. So great. So let's get started, Tim. So as I was saying, this is a very personal space here. So we're going to talk about our experiences and see how we can add value to the people and see how we can motivate people to embark in journeys about leadership development and things like that. So, being a very personal space, the first question that I would like to ask you is, who are you? Who is Tim JohnPress?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I trust my gut a lot as a coach. And what comes to me when you ask the question, who am I, is I think I've always been a learner, really curious about everything. And so I got into my career in my early 20s. It really was, I guess I would say I would be shaped as a student of humanity, just trying to understand people. I was always curious. I would watch people a lot, still do, and just try to figure out what makes them tick or what is this thing called life. So who I am is really a student of humanity and a learner.
Wow, what a powerful definition. The student of humanity. That's great. Just come to my mind here a question. How do you study humanity?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's why I do what I do. I think it's what I got into, why I got into coaching. As a coach and also as a leader, we're always taking in, particularly in today, tons of information. And we have all these senses, including our intuition. We're always gathering data. And, over time, we develop systems or processes or structures to understand or make sense of the data. So studying humanity is really just a lot about observing. And I think other coaches or even leaders will resonate with this thing called, observation or just becoming aware, paying attention. It's probably one of the most powerful tools a coach and a leader can, continue to develop is how to observe, to be present, to even absorb data, information, whether it's tangible or intangible, and then making sense of that based on, context, timing, environment.
I love that. I love, and I have written here, pay attention, be present, and observing. I love that, and I'm very in sync of that because I've been doing some reading about mindfulness and also doing about things about attention, structural attention, and I love that. Pay attention and be present because that is something that nowadays, in these days, it's very fast, everything. We are very busy all the time and doing this stuff, and we want to achieve our targets and everything. And sometimes we forget to take a little bit of space and pay attention. And that's about consciousness.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, when we start out in our careers, we're all very externally um, based. We're looking at being successful, contributing, executing, um, building our careers. And it's a rite of passage. But as you grow and get older, and really want to continue to develop as a leader or as any professional, it becomes more outside looking in versus inside looking out. And that's the work that, kind of our niche is. When we work with leaders, it's a lot of deep reflection, self-contemplation, self-understanding, self-awareness. You mentioned the word consciousness. It's a lot of consciousness work. When they can learn to be present with themselves, understand, they develop the skill to understand and be present and learn with others as well. And yet, what makes this work so powerful is that's not the world that we live and operate in. We live in, again, very external based. But as leaders, I'm continually championing being more internally focused on yourself, your thoughts, feelings, emotions, awareness, your consciousness.
Beautiful. I love what you're saying right now. And hearing you about this, you mentioned few words that the starting was self-awareness, self-observation,
Yeah.
reflection, and things like that. And in here, something that I wanted to talk about during this streaming is what I have seen in my experience as coach. When I coach leaders now, they are in the process. It's that I have seen them that there is a point in which, using this reflection that you just mentioned, the self-observation, and with the help of the coach, because the coach is curious, as you were saying, which is your essence, and also it has courage because it challenges the leader. It's the leaders, they have an aha moment. It's that moment in which they say, oh my God, this is it. And this is the point in which they find like something that it's stepping on the way, and they find a way to do a leap change. That happened to me. I remember that happened to me when I was doing the process with you. I have that very present with me. But I would like to ask you, first of all, what was that aha moment in you, and how did it happen?
Well, there's been a lot of them. When you're on a path of kind of seeking and development, you put a lot of these aha moments together. But there is one, particularly around leadership and coaching, that stands out. And it was with one of my mentors, a guy named Bob Anderson. Many of you may know Bob Anderson. He's the creator of the Leadership Circle 360 instrument. And I remember my certification. I was leading a team of 12 people at a consulting firm. We were very successful. I was probably maybe, I don't know, late 30s, and pretty proud of what we have done. We had a leadership development program. We're doing well with coaching. And then I did the certification with Bob. And there was one particular dimension called protecting particular arrogance that shows up down here on the Leadership Circle 360. And the score was relatively high, around 60th percentile. And I remember that really just tore me. And it caused me a lot of angst when I saw that higher score in arrogance, because I had always been taught as a martial artist to be humble. And it was always one of the values that we, in 40 years of training, staying humble is a real key component of martial arts training. So here I was thinking that I had been humble, but yet as a leader, I was being scored a little bit higher in arrogance. And Bob asked me about it. And I'll never forget, he goes, tell me what you think is behind this high arrogance or this protecting. He goes, Tim, what are you protecting against? And that was the aha moment. And in particular, he was right. I was being guarded, and I did show up a little guarded as a leader. And I had this flash of awareness going back to my family of origin, where there was a lot of arguing and there was a lot of fighting. I learned early on how to protect, being the youngest of six, some challenging environments. Well, when I connected the dots between the early conditioning, those formative years, and how I was showing up as a leader, it was really profound. I had never imagined that the way we were raised or the environments, even from early on, how they can show up as adult, successful professionals. And I think that's one of the more fascinating steps in a lot of leaders' journey, is when they have that epiphany and they go, wow, I had never realized or, equated that. So that's probably the biggest one. And, deeply grateful for Bob just asking that simple question: what are you protecting against? And then he followed up, he says, does it really make sense to be protecting anymore? And I'm like, no, not really. And that was the first step to the next level of my career. It was really powerful.
Wow, how wonderful, Tim, and thank you very much for sharing that, because you're opening your heart here and in this streaming, and I'm really grateful that you are doing this and showing your heart here with me and with the people who are connected. I share with you that feeling because I remember that in my case, it was also the protecting. I remember that it wasn't the arrogance, but it was the distance.
It's a distance, right?
Yeah, it was the distance. And for me, it was shocking too. I was very conflicted because I had always been a person wanting relationships, being the good guy, the guy that people always liked and everything. So I was saying, what the heck? Why are people saying this if I always say hello and everything and things like that? And I remember that at that point you were coaching me, and I remember that you asked a question similar to that, which is, what do you think is making you distant? And I remember that we talked about this being close to the people, because I was there and I talked to them, but I wasn't getting involved emotionally.
Yeah.
And
that hard space.
You asked me about that, what was keeping me to get involved emotionally, but you also told me about my voice and how you saw me at that point, and I remember that was my aha moment, and at that point I managed to see that, and with the reflection that you said, that you mentioned, that doing the self-awareness, the self-reflection, and the self-observation, I managed to do something different and change my leadership. And I remember that from that point onwards, I really improved the way I relate to people. And even though I was kind of results driven,
Right.
I could get better results, which is the greatest part of it.
Right.
Doing the relationships is like that. So thank you very much, because you reminded me about that in my case.
Yeah, those blocking moves, that one thing can transform, a career, a business. And you and I work in this space all the time, and it usually does. I think leaders often are surprised by how that one unlocking move can have such a huge impact on a team or a leader or even a business. And that's the beauty of this work. It's like, I feel like we're always exploring and mining and looking for those just little moves that just liberates and emancipates the heart, the mind, the energy that's in the system in a really beautiful way.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that, Tim. And the following part on this, we talked about our experiences, and you shared yours, I shared mine, and I must say that I was really touched when I heard you, and Kevin tried to share mine too. So thank you very much for that. But I would like you as a coach, as a leadership and executive coach, because I know that you have coached a lot of leaders, and we were talking about C-level people and owners and people that they have a very good background. So how do you see these people when they find this aha moment? What is if you can transmit us the experience that these leaders have gone through, so people can get motivated about it.
Yeah, I would say it's a process. And when you get a seasoned executive, they can respond in a number of different ways. Many, it is deeply emotionally triggering because you're touching their heart in a really hopeful or wonderful way. It generates a lot more authenticity within the leader. And authenticity is something that people in organizations are craving. So the response for leaders is often deeply emotionally, very heart-based, and equally so, quite liberating. People will, I literally can see on screen their face change and just lighten up, and the stress or the anxiety release off of their shoulders. It's very, very present. And so they feel quite liberated to be themselves, to be more authentic, to let go of antiquity and history. So, and probably 80% of the times, it's usually unexpected. They think they're going into another training and development conversation or process. And we go deep in the heart and the soul and touch them at a personal level. It's often quite refreshing for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. I was trying to remember the leaders that I have coached, and it's been the same situation. I would only like to add that liberation is at the very end. It is like taking a weight off the shoulders. It's like, wow, that's it. I saw it. It's revealing. And to get to the process there, because before the leaders get there, and I remember my personal experience when I was doing that. It is at a certain point it's very challenging because it's going inside. It requires courage, and that's why a
Great
coach
courage, yes.
that has this ability and the person reaching this courage to go inside and to get connected to your very soul to do that, because it could be even painful. I have seen people being, and I remember one that he was so shocked when we realized the operating system, because that's how we call it in the methodology that you developed. He just stayed quiet for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I said, "What can I do for you?" And he said, "I don't know." You just stay quiet, and we stay quiet for 5 minutes until after doing this grief, if you can call it like that. Then he said, I can see the path now. It was liberating because it was like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, when you hit those moments, which can be often triggering old traumas or difficulties, but when you have a leader and they can now pull themselves out of that, Keegan, I think, calls it the subjective to objective shift, which is what we do as coaches. We help the leaders, we help them to see it without being triggered or hooked by it. And that's that moment of liberation. And they free themselves from any, again, sometimes it's emotionally traumatic, painful, unfortunate, but now they can actually free themselves from it. And when that happens, they are more themselves, from their authentic self, which is really, really important as a leader.
Yeah, and very powerful. And as we were talking, it requires courage. It requires even, it's the courage to get there, and the courage to start walking forward, to move forward.
Yeah, there has to be a willingness. And, sometimes doing this deeper developmental work, it can be very challenging. But for it to work, leaders have to be wanting to grow and develop there has to be a willingness for sure.
Yeah, and to talk about that willingness, because the methodologies that we have shared with and that we have seen, they always put this tension, which is the willingness. It has to be something higher. So the question that comes to my mind right now is that willingness has to be tied to something bigger. That's kind of the vision or kind of the result that we want to create. And I like that part that is create, because we create the things with our willingness. So could you please share us your experience about this willingness and how it is tied to defining a vision and the results that we want to create, what you have seen in the leaders?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, the 8-gate matrix, the operating system methodology that I developed, it always begins with a vision. And I know that sounds a bit cliche, yeah, leadership and vision, but there's really a lot more to it. When you're talking about any kind of change, change requires energy. Otherwise, a system stays flat. There's no change. Systems want balance. They don't want to change. So when you have to change or you want to change, the only thing to spark the system, as I say, or ignite the system, is a compelling vision, a willingness. And the coaching question is, what is so big for you personally, developmentally, or your team or your business? What is it that is so meaningful that you want to achieve, do, or become, that you would do just about anything to achieve it? And I get them to talk about it. And I use pretty extreme language because I really want to ignite that spark. Because if there's not enough vision or vision energy or enough energy to change, you're going to stay with what's safe, comfortable, and familiar. Personally, the team will stay that same way, and the business will stay flat as well. So, you know, we talk about goals and visions. It's not just a nice thing or a cliche thing. There's actually, it's developmental. It's got to be something that touches us, that is meaningful to us, that we want to create, that is meaningful, not just making more money or doing this or that. It's got to be something deeply personal and meaningful. If you don't have it, the likelihood of the coaching or the change or even unlocking moves goes down. If you have something, it invokes that creative tension. It creates a pull.
Yeah, that's wonderful, and I want to bring, because that's one part, which is vision generates the energy, but also remember that you shared and you trained me on the 8 gates, the methodology that you designed. The second gate is defining the current reality to generate that creative tension. The Robert Fritz called it the structural tension, that you need to have it in order to get that movement, because otherwise, if you don't have it, the system is going to stay in equilibrium. The tension, it seeks resolving. But if the resolving is very high, which is the vision and the ambitions and the results that we want to create, then we move there. So what I have seen when I work with leaders, and this is very challenging, and maybe it's something that if the people who are listening to us, we have about 10 people listening to us, it's that when you define a vision and clearly state where you are right now, what is your current reality? Try to be objective. Try not to be like naive about our results, and try to overestimate and manipulate that conflict in that resolution. Because it's very difficult to get there. As we were saying, going deep down in your soul, it's very difficult. So I wanted you to share us about your experience when you work with leaders with this tension, the current reality and the vision.
Yeah, so whenever I take an engagement on, whether it's an individual or an executive team, you know, they usually come to me either with something they want to do or a problem they want to solve. And so it begins, I always say, what's your intention? One clear intention, an overarching intention. And I use that as my vision, right? And the intention can include goals and things like that. But why are we here? What are we intending or endeavoring to create? And that's always in the discovery process and upfront. Then, when we actually engage a client, I often say the first step to the next level is to tell the brutal, honest truth about where you currently are. You got a point A, a point B. We know where we want to be. Next, we have to tell the brutal, honest truth or the candid reality about where we are. Why is that important? Most companies go, or people will say, I want to achieve X. I want to achieve this vision. Tell me how to achieve X. I actually start, tell me how you achieved where you are currently at. Because I need to understand how they think, their perspective, their beliefs, how they make decisions. And I need to understand their current behaviors, because that's the stuff that's going to have to change for them to go achieve and become or do something new. It's a very subtle, but it's probably one of the most missed steps in all the coaching, all the book literature. And when I come in and I work with an individual, and that's why I love the 360 tool of the leadership circle, is in that moment you get a very, very healthy snapshot of how people perceive you as a leader. It's for better or worse, a brutally candid reality. Then we unpack that. We go, okay, now we understand how we are actually creating ourselves, our teams, or our business. We find out what's working and what's not, and then we start shifting and start doing some new things to move us in the direction of the vision. But that first step, and it's the one because nobody wants to deal with, because it's often difficult, it's scary, it's not comfortable to be that authentic or transparent, it's not safe to be that vulnerable. These are the big ticket items that when I work with executives, when I'm digging for those unlocking moves, I get it. It is not safe. There is no safe way to be great. There is no way to be invulnerable. The risk of being great or doing extraordinary things requires extra. The extra is understanding, even appreciating and respecting our candid reality or our current reality and how we shaped it or created it. Then, once we clearly get conscious of that, which is again another aha moment for leaders, then we can start upgrading the operating system.
Yeah, that's very true. And I was connecting with that you're saying that not only see and then make the affirmations about where you are, but also see how you are operating to get that current reality. That's very good. And I would like to, because it's at the beginning, it's, or I don't know if people who are hearing us, when we talk about our operating system, because sometimes when you hear it the first time, when I heard it the first time and I was reading the book of the Master in Leadership, he was talking about the operating system and saying, operating system, that's what computers. That's it. It doesn't make sense. Obviously, I'm an engineer and I'm a person who is trying to link everything together. But then when I started studying it made sense. So it's could you elaborate a little bit more about the operating system that we as humans have?
Yeah, so this is my premise. I would say experiment and explore with it because we are human beings. But as a former engineer myself, electrical engineer, I really have a deep wanting to understand how things actually work. And through all my martial arts training, meditation, yoga practice, things of that, there is an operating system of sorts to human beings and how we operate, how we learn, how we develop, how we adapt. So it's kind of a four-step stage. And there's one rule that I always ask people to, or a guideline, even a principle to say is, as a leader, you are the author of your reality. You create the weather in your system. You have full ownership of the world that you are creating in. Andres, you're at your desk. I'm at my desk. We have folks with us. We put ourselves here. It didn't happen to us. We created that. We were creating an outcome or a result. So that's one piece of the operating system. It's the end game. It's what's in front of us. It's what we see in our world, whether it's business metrics or even how we are feeling as a human being or a leader. It's a result. We are creating it. We are creating it by behaviors or actions or practices that we take. So if I feel a little toxicity in my kidneys or livers, I might take a drink of water and flush my system. Great. And I feel a little bit better. So behind every outcome or result is a practice. It's an action or a behavior or a practice. That's what I'd call a single loop. Behind every action or behavior or practice, there is a choice, a decision being made, maybe even a plan. I choose because I'm noticing an outcome. I'm going to make a choice and drink some water, flush my system a little bit, feel better. It doesn't just happen. I'm making a choice. Now, whether I'm conscious of that decision or not, that's a whole nother conversation. But I am, every behavior, every action, every practice is driven by some choice or a commitment even. I think Keegan calls it competing commitments or commitments. So that's kind of the third stage. We've got results. Our behaviors drive results. Our decisions, the choices we make, and we make choices every single moment. We are always making choices. That impacts our behavior, which gives us our outcome. Now, at the core of all this is our worldview, our perspective, also known as beliefs, assumptions, interpretations of what we think about the world. The easiest way to portray this is, do I believe I live in a benevolent universe or a malevolent universe? And it's neither one is right or wrong, but it's a choice, it's a belief, it's a conditioning. It's a perspective. I like to call it perspective because perspective is a lens that we see the world. Now, this is made by the way we were raised, the way we were taught, our environments, our culture, even the planet we live on, all shaped our beliefs. Now, when you put it together, beliefs, assumptions, perspective, those things have an impact on our choices. The choices drive our behaviors. The behaviors give us an outcome. That's the operating system. And I've been doing this particular operating system work for about 20 years, and I've never had a situation, whether it's a team, an individual, or business, that it doesn't work exactly that way. Now, I could be wrong. I'm open to that. But those are the fundamentals of the operating system.
Yeah, very clear, and thank you very much for sharing it. And the only thing that I would like to add to what you said is that sometimes we have parts of that system, which is what you're saying is our beliefs that give us the way we value things and then how we make choices, just to make it very simple. But usually there are some parts of the system that we are not aware of as human beings, as leaders, and as everything. And put it as an example. We don't know how the engine works. I mean, we know it's combustion, we know we have gasoline, oxygen, things like that, but we don't know how each part works, okay? And that's the operating system of the car, the engine, okay? Right. In here, the operating system is the engine of how we behave, and with that behavior, how we're impacting the people and how people are perceiving us because of that. But my addition to what you said, because you were very clear and the example was very good, is that there are some things that we don't know, it's the unconscious incompetence that we are not aware about that. So that's the greatness of the process. And that's where taking your first words at the beginning, the self-observation, the
Right.
self-reflection and things like that, it is very important because those things usually are in autopilot. And I want to share here my experience. I remember that because that distance was from one part is not to get involved with people emotionally, but was also because I always consider myself a smart person. And I am. I was always good at everything that I was. So I put so much value in that I was behaving like pointing out mistakes and everything, which is good because we need to identify the mistakes and we need to correct them. But what people told me on the feedback was, it is great when you find the mistakes because we can correct them.
Right.
You're smiling because you remember that situation. And people were saying, the first time is great. Oh, he helped us. Then I went back. I said, you made a mistake. They said, okay. But then I went back again the third time. And then the fourth time, I remember this guy saying, why are you coming back to this? So it was an unconscious behavior
That's
that
right.
it was built on this value that I was value so much the intelligence and being smart that I was behaving this way and impacting negatively people. So just to add again, the addition that I want to make here is that sometimes that goes in autopilot and we need to become aware of that. That's what we call the conscience and competence. Okay, so just wanted to add that. I see you nodding, so I suppose you're agreeing with me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big piece what you just mentioned. I use this saying, it's difficult to read the label when you're inside the bottle. And as coaches, we help the people who are in their bottle, right? These beliefs,
Yeah.
these decisions, these behaviors, see that. And that's the beauty of the work. And once they see it, they start reading the label on the bottle, they go, oh, they have this moment of illumination, of consciousness.
Yeah.
They go,
Yeah.
well, that's just not going to help me achieve what I want or become what I want to become.
Mhm.
That's that beautiful thing. And the other thing, I just to double click on what you said is, these things are very deeply conditioned from the moment of birth. So it's not going to necessarily change overnight, but it could. I've seen it happen. We have to continually, that's why I call this practice. Leadership is a practice because you always have to be working it. You always have to be fine tuning and adjusting. And to drive, to change your operating system, it takes energy because that conditioning has been with you 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Even more.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that, Tim. Great. What a nice conversation. We could continue here for hours, but it's just not to make it very long. So I would like to wrap up here because we have said in this conversation very important things. So leadership is a practice. You just said it. Very important. And I want to start from where you were saying, because I love the way you said, I'm a student of humanity, but that came from talking about curiosity, self-reflection, self-observation. So it is a practice. Observe yourself, go deep down in your current reality, how you are creating it, but always aim high and define those results that you want to create, and develop this consciousness to make those behaviors and beliefs, this operating system is to reveal and be conscious about the operating system. So you can observe it and then you can change it to make it an improved operating system. That will be a very brief summary of what I got. I don't know if you want to add something.
Yeah, there's an old, he was one of the first motivational authors I read back in the 80s. His name was Jim Rohn. And he said, work harder on yourself than you do on your business, and you'll never work hard on your business. And, I really, as a martial artist, that resonated with me, the training, to always be fine-tuning and training and practicing. And I find that to be true. Everything you just said is working on yourself, right? The conditioning, the candid reality, having a powerful vision, the game filming your behaviors, your mindset, always observing, learning, being curious. That's working on yourself. I guarantee, literally guarantee, if you work harder on yourself, your business will go a lot easier.
Great. Thank you for that, Tim, and thank you very much for being here in Coffee with Leader, this initiative. Your support is very important for me, and thank you very much for those who joined us. We had a group between 7 and 10 people. We hope, but what we're hoping with this is that we are useful for people and we can motivate people to do exactly this, to be more conscious, to do their reflection, to do this self-observation and things like that. So that was the idea, and I think we had a great conversation. We touched down on very deep things, and thank you very much. Thank you very much for being so personal, Tim, because you put your heart here, and I know that. I remember that when I proposed you this space, I said, this is going to be very personal, and you said, that's me, I'm very personal.
Thanks, Andres.
There is one comment here, very interesting to understand each day a little bit better our operating systems. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Natalia. And Natalia is a big friend of me, so I'm sending her a big hug. So, Tim, again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being here. So, thank you, and everyone, have a great day today.
Thanks.
I like walking around, it's good for me. Could you tell me where we could go eat? Take me to the good times. I just gotta get out most days, you see. I like walking around, it's good for me. Could you tell me where we could go eat? Take me to the good